Welcome back, everyone. The Edo State Governorship Election Petition Tribunal will commence pre-hearing proceedings on Monday, December 9, 2024, for petitions challenging the declaration of Senator Monday Okpebholo of the APC as the winner of the September 21, 2024 governorship election. The three-man tribunal headed by Justice Wilfred Kwochi is appointed to entertain the 7 petitions filed by different political parties and their candidates to challenge the victory of Monday Okpebholo. Dissatisfied with the outcome, the PDP and 6 other political parties filed petitions at the tribunal seeking to overturn INEC's declaration. The PDP in particular is asking the tribunal to nullify the election results and declare its candidate, Dr. Afegbua, as the rightful winner. Meanwhile, a former Minister of Aviation and Chancellor of the Athena Center for Policy and Leadership, Osita Chidoka, has accused INEC of rigging the Edo governorship election in favor of the ruling All Progressives Congress, APC. And according to Chidoka, the Athena Center's analysis of the election result revealed significant discrepancies, including a mismatch between the number of accredited voters recorded by presiding officers at polling units and the figures reported by INEC's BVAS backend. These are serious allegations against the electoral umpire, INEC, and the APC. So tonight, Prince Kassim Afegbua, APC Chieftain, joins me on the program for some reactions to these allegations and other matters. Prince, good evening to you, sir. Welcome to Politics Tonight. Thank you so much for joining us this evening.
Thank you very much for having me. Good evening.
Right, so just like I said in my introduction, these are serious allegations against your party. Athena Center for Policy and Leadership is a non-partisan research institute. The institute is claiming that the September 21st election was compromised. How do you react to this?
Well, thank you very much for the opportunity of this discussion. First, let me state without mincing words that this is a response to the media trial carried out by Athena Center, was presented last week, by his chairman or whether his professor, I don't know the title, talking about, the Edo elections. First and foremost, Athena Center is not neutral and was not neutral at the elections. Athena Center's driver is former Minister of Aviation, who is also a full-fledged member of the PDP, until Friday, where he publicly said on national television that he was resigning. Prior to that and prior to his presentation, he was a full-fledged member of the PDP. And so he was canvassing the position of the PDP, which has become weather-beaten. And I want to make the point that the tribunal is already on. Whatever be my views here are in direct response to the views he canvassed. I don't want to be charged for sub judice. Whether we like it or not, we need to address those issues that they don't create or whip up public sentiments in a manner that will tend to, rub off the credibility of the election of Edo State.
So, Prince, if you say the report is heavily influenced by the party's position, in this case the PDP, there were some local observers who also questioned the process. Maybe not the outcome of that election, but the process. I remember that days after the election, some public policy analysts also said the controversies surrounding the Edo State governorship election underscore a deepening crisis of trust in Nigeria's electoral system. And
that particular center was a full-fledged member of the PDP until Friday, where he resigned his membership of PDP on air. That alone has...
I hear you, Prince, but I'm also talking about other local observers who have also questioned the process of the September 21st election.
I'm coming to that. I'm coming to that. Quite a number of, when you say local observers, I always want to know how credible those local observers are. It has become a sing-song. After elections, you see some local observers running commentaries and all of that about election that they might not even have the personnel to cover even 50% of the polling areas. But they will come out with all kinds of reports. Oftentimes, a lot of them sit back at Benin City, the capital of the state, to make an impression about the election that took place in 4,516 polling units. And so where you derive your conclusion from maybe 100 polling units or even 200 polling units out of 4,000 plus, for me, I wouldn't take such report as representative of the general behavior, the pattern, and the character of that election, as it were. Without holding brief for INEC, the point is that we keep hammering at INEC, complaining about INEC, but we politicians are actually part and parcel of those who affect the responsibility and the activities of INEC. You complain about INEC, IRF, and data, yet you went to the same INEC and data to use that one to also make an impression about the election. If you say INEC was not credible, why do you rely on the information you were getting on IRF and the beavers from the back end according to you? So the point is, it's just a matter of trying to call a dog a bad name in order to hang it, whip up public sentiments about the election because tribunals are, arguments will soon start in a matter of days, and so create an impression that PDP actually won the election. An election you complain about, you said things were not done properly, but yet you were thinking that PDP should win the election. That to me is a contradiction, and so we are not persuaded by that argument. It was a partisan argument. It was driven by ulterior motive, and that also impugned the credibility and the character of Athena Center. This is the first time it's coming out to speak so strongly. I know they did one of Imo, they did one of Kogi, and Edo was the next in line. Next week now, maybe you will hear from them talking about Ondo election. So, but the point I'm making is that you cannot be a member of a party and you tell me you are trying to be non-partisan in your presentation of facts and reports. More so when those reports do not quarrel with the outcome of elections in areas where PDP performs so well. But only you are concerned about only places where APC performs so well. So for me, it's just motion without movement, so to speak.
But Prince, what you've just done is discrediting the report of every local observer who monitored that election. But again, isn't it worrisome that the Edo elections governorship election generated so much controversy than the other 4 by-elections we have had in the last 1 year? And I'm just wondering, why is there so much controversies? Are these some of the challenges that come with conducting by-elections in Nigeria? Or this is just a continuation of what we saw days ahead of that election, where so many political gladiators in the states took the election as a do-or-die affair, especially the 2 leading political parties in the states?
I'm actually not giving a general condemnation to all the local observers, so to speak. There were quite a number of local observers who spoke eloquently about the processes, because particularly in areas where they monitored elections. I only quarrel with procedures or processes of observation when you sit back in your cocoon and you are writing outcome of election, or you are, vending your position based on, what you observe from your cocoon, and you are using to generalize the entire character of the election. That to me is will remain uninformed.
Right.
And if you want to carry out observation, you have to have your manpower to cover at least 70–80% of the voting area, the polling units. In Edo, we have about 4,516 polling units. If you want to make, a position that is validly, that can be validly authenticated based on what you saw, send out your men on the field to cover at least 70%. That way you can be talking to me from the point of view of informed knowledge about the election. But you don't sit back in Benin and you visit one or two polling units on election day, and because every other person is talking something, then you join in that bandwagon.
All right.
You are now
all right. Let's look at the issues, Mr. Afegbua. Let's look at some of the issues Athena Center has raised. Very crucial to analyze if we must achieve electoral integrity in this country. Judicial claimed that while polling units records showed 580,000 accredited voters, INEC's back-end inflated the figure to 687,000, adding more than 100,000 votes in 798 polling units. I mean, he described this as clear evidence of back-end tampering and a deliberate effort to manipulate the outcome. How do you defend this on behalf of your party?
You see, it's very easy to call INEC, to give INEC a bad name in order to hang it. But I want to ask, from where did Athena Center source, their information on the back end? Are they the owners of the beavers? Do they use beavers to work in Athena Center? Do you have access to beavers that covers 4,516 polling units? The answer is no. Do you also use results or outcome in some local polling units to score the general election as lacking integrity or not credible enough? The answer is no. You condemn INEC on the one hand about IRF and data, then on the other hand, you are using the same records to say they should declare that the PDP won, that votes were inflated. The point is that at the polling unit level, because I voted, I was right there, under the Electoral Act, at the polling unit level, results, beavers are used to do accreditation. Ballot papers are handed over to people, to voters. The voter will go carry out the exercise of voting and dump it in the docket. Now, if at the end of the day votes are counted and there are spoiled ballots which are also captured under the Electoral Act 2022 as amended, you have the responsibility of also looking at the validation of those ballot papers and or rejection of them. But the polling unit officer does not have that kind of powers. He will have to rely on the ward collation officer, whose roles and responsibilities are also captured in the Electoral Act, Section 63, 64, and 65. The entire procedure for the elections are there. And so, when you go to the the ward collation center, chances are that spoiled ballots may represent certain percentage of votes that have to be, that have to be invalidated. It may be tampering of election results in terms of mutilation. Agents will make complaints, and the ward collation officer will have to listen to them. And so many other infractions that may have taken place at the polling unit level, which the polling officer cannot act on. But the law of the Electoral Act guarantees that the ward collation officer has the powers to listen to those complaints at that ward level and take appropriate measure. After the ward level, you have to still take the result back to the local government level. That's what they call local government collation officer. And every agent of parties will have to sit back, watch everything as they collate the results. This time, the local government will be collecting results from all the wards. Like in my local government at Sako East, my ward has 19 polling units. The results for all the 19 polling units were brought to the ward collation center, and by the time we reconcile all the figures, in addition to complaints here and there, we came, some votes were deducted from that of APC, some votes were also deducted from that of PDP as a function of spoiled ballot, which the polling officer tolerated, but which are actually not tolerated at the ward collation center. So the result you have posted to IRF, if there is IRF for that matter, will be different from what you are arriving at the ward collation center. And from the ward collation center, if you go to the local government, chances are that it will also be different. If there are infractions, if there are spoiled ballots, if there are ballots that were not properly thumbprinted, because the beavers will only give you accreditation. It doesn't tell you what happened to the ballot. The ballot paper can be mutilated. The ballot paper can also be wrongly thumbprinted. You can thumbprint, and your thumbprinting is covering 2 lines, or a single line, maybe it's running through the other line. It may be invalid. A polling officer may say it is valid, but when it goes to the ward level, they will say, no, this is invalid. So these are the...
So, Prince Afegbua, are you insinuating that these anomalies are normal and can happen at any time?
They are not anomalies. These are the procedure defined under the Electoral Act, Section 63, 64, and 65. If you study it, you will see the spoiled ballots is explicitly explained, and the issue of collation of results from the ward level to the local government level are also adequately explained. But people are always in a hurry to think that when you post result to IRF, that becomes the final verdict of election. That is not true.
So I say that because he also pointed to discrepancies between the certified true copies of polling units results issued by INEC and the results uploaded to its results viewing portal, that's IRF. He's alleging that these irregularities suggest that the use of duplicate result sheets containing fabricated figures to skew the election. And I'm wondering how the APC intends to defend this at the tribunal. And also, what is the role or place of party agents during collation, especially at the ward and local government levels? If Athena Center is coming out with these kinds of allegations, what happens to party agents identifying these anomalies at the ward levels, if at all they exist?
Thank you very much for this question. It shows crass ignorance on the part of Athena Center with respect to procedure for election. I've just told you that when you post result on IRF from the polling unit center, that is what you got there based on the opinion of the polling officer. But when ballot papers and collation officers are meeting at the ward level, in presence of party agents, complaints of invalid votes, spoilt ballot papers, irregular serial number and all of that, when they raise them, agents are the ones who normally complain. The ward collation officer is guided adequately by provisions of the Electoral Act to take decision based on those complaints. When they remove 1 vote, 2 votes, 3 votes, 4 votes, the beavers will not record that any longer. But the beavers have already accredited you. But the beaver does not tell you the behavioral pattern of the ballot paper in the hand of a voter, of a prospective voter. And so, by the time they remove some votes, based on these conditions, there is a likelihood that that same vote that will be recorded at the ward level for Party A, B, C, D will not be the same posted on IRF from the polling unit. And if you take it from there down to the local government level, the same scenario happens. And the interesting thing is that all of this procedure, all of these processes are carried out in the presence of party agents. And the Edo election was called to be non-violent, free and fair conduct. In fact, even the U.S. Embassy in Lagos, the consular, made reference to that in their press statement. And so, if there were no crisis of ballot box stuffing and what have you, then the agents will not say they were harassed, to endorse a result that didn't favor them. So the point is, every agent stays at the point of collation at the ward level and at the local government level. And once everything is done, they append their signature on it. And that was what happened in the case of Edo election. All of these other analysis that people are running, IRF not combining this, ECA this is not that. It is sheer lack of ignorance of the procedure of the conduct of election as captured in the relevant sections of the Electoral Act.
All right, Mr. Afegbua, let's go on a break, and when we come back, we'll continue this conversation. Please stay with us, everyone.
Information is power, information is security, information is knowledge. On Labor Lens, we believe that working people around the world have real questions of their own. They want to know how the world of work operates, what it means to the employer of labor, how policies affect workers in the workplace. On Labor Lens, I am sure we engage effectively the organized labor, organized private sector, and government to get out of them information workers are in need of. I am Sharon Ijason, asking questions that make you get sense of the workplace.
There is always more to a story than the screaming headline. The part of a story that is not told casts a shadow. It's like the part of an object that is not reached by light. On TVC News, I'm able to explore the many angles there are to a story, talking to stakeholders, asking the difficult questions, and digging for facts. I believe the viewers are able to make a better decision if they're well informed and understand not just a part, but the complete story. TVC News, first with breaking news.
I'm Miriam Lunge. I'm a passionate environment advocate and a published author.
I am the founder of Celebration, a businesswoman, and a fashion icon.
I am a wealth coach and a real estate developer.
I am Amako Arakwe. I'm a corporate commercial lawyer and an entrepreneur.
Welcome to Warhaka. I am Ramatu Shehu Oyibo, an entrepreneur and a business coach.
I am the voice of an average Muslim woman, an hijabite, and a lawyer.
I am a polymath and a serial entrepreneur.
I am Murayo Afolabi Brown, Managing Director, TVC Entertainment. I'm a media consultant, producer, and broadcaster.
The ladies of your view are made of women from different professions, tribes, cultures, and religion. Join us every Monday to Friday as we share our views on topical and social issues.
Welcome back to Politics Tonight, everyone. Thank you very much for staying with us. APC Chieftain Kassim Afegbua is my guest tonight and has been reacting to some of the allegations raised by the Athena Center for Policy and Leadership as we focus on Edo election and the raging controversy. Prince, thank you so much for staying with us on the program. Thank you. Now, two more issues before we move on to other matters. There are still allegations of overvoting, missing results, and the manipulation of Beaver's records at INEC headquarters. But for Beavers and how it should have positively transformed our electoral process in Nigeria, are we making any progress? Have we made progress with incorporating technology into our electoral process?
We have made progress, we are making progress, and just like every other thing in life, it's an evolutionary process that leads from good to better, and just in that order. You cannot have a perfect election anywhere in the world. There would generally have, some kind of infractions, but those infractions may not be enough or substantial enough to vitiate the outcome of the election or invalidate the outcome. If you have a scenario of having elections kind of area will not invalidate the entire result from other 4,000 plus polling units. So the point is, you cannot, on the one hand, claim that certain things had happened, and you now went back to the same body you are condemning, the INEC, to say, okay, you got your information from the back end. How come you now trusted the back end on certain infractions and all of that. So it is
Prince Afegbua, I mean, with everything you've said tonight, are you insinuating or alleging that Athena Center may have hacked into INEC's database?
It is very possible. That's number one. Number two, on election day, people were posting results of Edo 2020 election, Guba election, which Obaseki won in 2020. They were posting it on the RF. So when we were seeing results flying all over the place, we took time to look at the pattern. And we now saw dates that this election was 2020. We were marveled. That is one. Secondly, after the election, PDP wrote formally to INEC, in line with the Electoral Act, of asking for review of the election within 7 days after the election. It's provided for in the Electoral Act. And in that review, PDP presented results as declared by INEC. They presented their own based on the result they obtained from their party agents and situation room, EC8A, EC8B. And they did a comparison. It will shock you to know that PDP acknowledged APC as the winner of the election with 4,963 votes. That is PDP's own record. They were quarreling with the fact that INEC declared results score APC 44,000 more than them. But their own results, they say 4,623. So I remember a governor in this country, Aminu Tambuwa, he defeated his opponent with all that, scored APC as the victor of that election. Then why cry foul over nothing? So I think they just want to tarnish the image of INEC, tarnish the image of the election, so that they can begin to whip up public sentiments and for them to see the election as another one that if they have...
Before we move on, Prince, how confident is your party? How ready is your party to defend its mandate at the tribunal? Because I remember Afegbua told me on this program that there is enough evidence to reclaim his mandate at the tribunal.
Alajumoke, we have moved beyond defending mandate. Our governor active politics, the vestiges of, high-handedness, division, legacy PDP versus Obaseki PDP and all of that. If anything, ex-Governor Obaseki was actually the architect of the failure of PDP because he quarreled with virtually everybody in Edo State. And under such an atmosphere of division, you can have election that Edo people are very enlightened people, heavily sensitized, heavily mobilized, and they understand the dynamics and intricacies of our level of homogeneity as a state and as a people, driven by one common agenda of rich cultural heritage and a sense of communal solidarity across board. When you have a governor, a former governor, who was quarrelsome and fighting everybody, you don't expect that they will win election. It's not possible. So it was an easy win for us because we know that inside them they were heavily divided. Do you remember that former Governor Obaseki went to INEC office, trying to twist them? What was his function as a chief executive of the state? What was he doing inside INEC office? What did he go there to do? To influence them? To cajole them?
So, Prince, the tenor of former Governor Obaseki is on. Let's talk about Monday Okpebholo. It's been 3 weeks since he assumed office. Why has he directed all 18 local government chairmen in the state to submit their statements of account for the period beginning September 4, 2023? What does he intend to do with that?
Okay, it is good for us to, because we set up a transition committee when prior to his inauguration, and that transition committee did not enjoy the kind of cooperation and the kind of information we needed to get from all the different ministries, parastatals, and agencies of government. And so we recommended to the governor that there will be need to do a further probing into the status report that should naturally form the takeoff point for the new governor. And so the governor inaugurated an asset verification committee, 15-member asset verification committee, barely 2 weeks ago. And he has given us specific terms of reference to look into several other areas with respect to the finances of Edo State. Local government is also part and parcel of the executive because they normally operate what they call joint allocation account. That's state government and local government. And so we want to see how much has accrued to the local government in 2, 3, 4, 5 years back, and how they have spent their money. Because the information we had, and which we still have, is that they get allocation from federal government. They are almost twisted to go to Sterling Bank to go and sign signatures that they have received this money. But in actual sense, they are not, given access to their money so that they can work. Go to local governments in Edo State, you can't see any capital project. They just pay them salaries, pay staff salaries in some cases, and in some cases they just, leave the staff to just groan under very harsh economic conditions. We've seen scenario since we came on board. They have written us, Algon and some other, and Nolge, they have written complaining about the number of months they have been owed salary. And this is the same government when they were on stream, telling everybody that they were paying salary on the 23rd of every month. But we are having almost an arrears of about 4.something billion, if my reading is right, because they gave us documents. And that is salary arrears at the local government level. So the governor used the meeting with the local government chairman to say, please, we want to see your status report with respect to finances. Let us see the pattern of behavior, the character of expenses and all of that. If you got 12 billion or you got 10 billion between XYZ time to this time, let's see how you even spent it. Let's see your statement of account. I think that is the honorable thing to do in line with best practices, elsewhere. But for anybody to think that we are out for a witch hunt will be that they are also undermining.
That's my next question. I was going to ask you if Governor Monday Okwebolo is planning to probe former Governor Obaseki's administration.
We will definitely probe him, and part of the asset verification that we are doing is part of probing, because we are concerned about the finances that are accrued.
And you said that's not witch hunting.
Despite those finances,
Prince, you said that's not witch hunting the former governor.
Call it any name. I don't like to call a spade by a different name. Call a spade a spade. What is witch hunting? If he has presided over the collective patrimony of Edo people, taxpayers, and other persons who have been doing business in Edo State, and he received X amount at so point, it is the responsibility of the people represented in the governor to ask questions about how he spent that money. It is not his family's money. It is public money. And there has to be accountability, probity, and transparency in the conduct of public governance in any state. But oftentimes, we label probe of this nature or even inquisition, trying to know what transpired, we label the witch hunt. What is the meaning of witch hunt? I even want to have wizard hunts of whatever that has gone wrong with Edo finances. We need to ask questions. We need to see how cost effective your pricing was, how cost effective your project was. If you say you constructed 3 kilometers of road, tell us. If you don't have access to the tender, tell us how much you expended on the 3 kilometer road. If you are spending 3 billion to construct 3 kilometer road, the people deserve the right to interrogate you, to ask questions. So anybody should not be afraid of whether there's a wizard hunt or there's a witch hunt anywhere.
I'm sure you'd agree with me that you politicians made that word very popular. But let's go on, because Edo State Governor Monday Okwebolo swore in 3 judges who were shunned by the Godwin Obaseki administration during the swearing-in of 5 of their colleagues last year. What necessitated this move?
Well, not just swearing them in. Their swearing in, was backdated to May, when the other colleagues of these judges were sworn in. The NJC at the federal level recommended 8 persons to be sworn into the position of judges. It wasn't the responsibility of ex-governor Obaseki, but out of being vindictive to people, out of this same combative politics that he played, he sworn in 5. He didn't like the face of those 3 others, and so Monday Okwebolo, as the governor, has the right to just carry out what the NJC has since perfected in May. And so they'll be sworn in and they've been backdated to May. And they will be paid their full salaries for those number of months that they have missed when their colleagues were sworn in. And that is the Midas touch that Senator Monday Okwebolo is bringing to the state. There is level of tranquility now, serenity, quietude, and some kind of robust engagement that permeates, the different strata of social and political life in Edo State. He has also returned full powers to the Oba of Benin. Obaseki tried to balkanize the Benin Kingdom that covers 7 local governments, trying to generate some kingdoms out of that, which was like an abomination. We championed this during the campaigns. We said it to Edo people, and thank God that the governor has restored the powers of the great Oba of Benin Kingdom, II. And so we are elated and we are happy about that. Not just that, he has commenced, construction of projects. We are doing flyover bridges. They have commenced working already. 3 are going to be done in Benin, Ramat Park area, the Sapele Road, and Dawson Street. You see, when you see a governor who wants to work, you will see it from the very first day he becomes governor. Not those one who will become governor and they will wait for 8 months without appointing cabinet members. Obaseki waited 8 months before he appointed commissioners. This particular governor has started.
But Prince, still on the 3 judges who were sworn in, I know the governor said he did this in fulfillment of his campaign promise to right the wrong of his predecessor. But there are those who say the governor has kicked off on a wrong note. They called that action undue interference, which would make these 3 judges forever indebted to him and perhaps do his bidding when the time comes. Is this Governor Pueblo also setting the tone for politicizing the judiciary just as his predecessor allegedly did?
No, you can't compare the behavior, the style, the candor, the aura, the emotional intelligence of a Monday Pueblo with that of the combative, quarrelsome nature of an ex-governor Obaseki. They are miles apart. And I'm saying this with all this sense of responsibility, having been part and parcel of the power process in Edo for the past 15, 16 years. And so anybody who is thinking that will be missing the point altogether. You have a man who they denigrated him. They called him all sorts of names. He is going to prove them wrong by the kind of actions he's taking already. Within 2 weeks of his emergence as the governor, having been sworn in on November 12th, come to Edo and see the kind of palpable air of serenity that permeates, everywhere. When you have a man who understands the feelings of the people, who can walk on the streets, and you see people celebrating, hailing and praising him and all of that, it's different from one whom we have even thrown a challenge to come and walk the street of Benin now as an ex-governor. Let Obaseki call. We place a price tag of 50 million to give it. He can come and walk the street of Benin with our governor.
It's interesting because, Prince, it's interesting because there is no name you APC members have not called or chieftains have not called Gordon Obaseki. But please correct me if I'm wrong. This is the first time in the history of Edo politics where a governor and his deputy governor would part ways in this manner. And I'm surprised that it happened this way because Governor Obaseki had recently said he does not want to be remembered for his many fights. He does not want to be remembered for his clash with opponents. And if the APC is painting this picture of there is nothing good about the former governor, so how do you describe the way former President Olusegun Obasanjo described him? He describes him as a builder who impacted on the lives of his people. He calls him a pace setter.
Well, thank you for the comparison. You even made a very valid historical point. That is the first time that the deputy and his governor and his deputy will go on this war path to the point that one was, wrongfully impeached according to the verdict of the courts. You see, it is part of the bad behavior of the former governor. And President Olusegun Obasanjo was only playing the role of a statesman. That's their usual character. You don't expect him to come to Stella Obasanjo Hospital, which was haphazardly left uncompleted, and try to commission it, and you are presenting it as if it was a completed project. Until we carry out inspection of that particular property, we saw that so many things were left undone, some very shoddy jobs and all of that. Stella Obasanjo Hospital has existed under Lucky Igbenedion as governor. It was built. What Obaseki was doing was to expand it. And there's no harm in that. That's good. But please, why are you commissioning a project that was still ongoing? The cost we are not aware of. We asked questions. Nobody was ready to tell us. They said they run e-governance platform. We try to access documents from e-governor platform. Everything will be shut down. The back-end code is with former Governor Basaki and some of his lieutenants and all of that. So how do you move forward? Thank God that we have some eggheads when it comes to technology. And so they've been able to decode some of this thing, and we're able to get some very skeletal information, which we are working with now. So what they call e-governance, for me, it was e-corruption. And so Obaseki may have done some things, no doubt about that. A man cannot be completely bad. He has done some things, but we are saying that on account of what accrued to the state, in the 8 years that he presided over the state as a governor, what we are seeing on ground is, are not commensurate to what should be in terms of the productivity. Because it took the state from 43 billion in 2016. We are now at 500 billion. Look at that, domestic debts and all of that. If you add external debts to that, we are shooting over 700 billion. And when you raise questions, they will tell you it's the volatility of the dollar. When the dollar started climbing to the roof. So for God's sake, you may have done some things, no doubt about that. But please, the money Edo got, the kind of resources we got. You remember the last days of Governor Basaki when we had EFCC had to arrest his accountant general. They were trying to pull out certain money, about 14 billion left the bank from nowhere. We didn't know how until EFCC tracked it, and they tried to arrest the money. Let me put it that way. By arresting the accountant general and some other person, we were also arresting the money. And so too many things, too many underhand transactions. And that is why this asset verification we are doing is part of it. There is a vehicle recovery. We have recovered about 42 vehicles in the last 2 weeks. People were carrying vehicles to their home, going to hide, Prado jeeps, Land Cruiser jeeps, Hiluxes and all of that in people's home. Government property. For God's sake. What are we talking about? So we need to verify the asset of the state and ensure that we are taking off from a point of view of strength and not of weakness.
All right, Prince, as we wrap up tonight, let's talk about, there's a new sheriff in town, Monday Afegbua, and you all call him breath of fresh air. He's been sworn in as the governor of Edo State, and agreeably, he would have to up his ante to ensure that he meets the expectations of the people who are eager for a quick fix to whatever issues they consider germane. Governor Basaki has done his bit, for which he has been applauded for. The rate of unemployment in Edo State, what hope is Governor Afegbua given to teaming Edo youth as he steers the affairs of the state for the next 4 years?
Well, thank God that Afegbua is coming in at this time, because if we had allowed the pattern of Obasaki's conduct to continue, there will be a complete zero civil service in Edo State. He appointed PAMSEC from different places across Nigeria to come and be running Edo civil service. He appointed them like political aides. The civil service was left. People who were level 13 officers were made PAMSEC. People who were level 14 officers were made PAMSEC. Such an aberration in terms of civil service in the country and in the state. That was what we saw, in part, as part of our own findings.
So what would Monday Afegbua do differently? That's the question.
So what we are going to do, we will carry out staff audits, first and foremost, to establish the number of persons we have. Because Senator Monday Afegbua had already, Governor Monday Afegbua had already stopped, those persons who were brought from different parts of the country to come and dominate our Edo civil service. He has already stopped that. And some other parastatals and agencies, that were being run by private individuals who had no stake in Edo collective patrimony. We have already stopped that. So we are going to carry staff audit to establish the level of ghost workers and what have you. And at the end of the day, when we know the actual number of civil servants we have in the state, we will add value to that if need be, and also create platforms where we can also recruit other people into Edo civil service to drive the business of governance.
All right, thank you so much for joining us tonight, Prince Kassim Afegbua, APC Chieftain. Thank you so much for your time with us, and we hope that very soon we should be able to speak directly with the governor. It's high time we spoke with him, don't you think so, Prince?
No, you can speak to him anytime. All you need to do is just to write to us that you want to speak with the governor. I don't want television invitations to constituted authority. There has to be some level of decorum, some level of standard and procedure in doing that. Right. At times we take too much of our familiarity, in this business. So I appreciate this opportunity to give this explanation, and I want to thank you for having me.
All right. Thank you very much for your time. Please have a great evening. And thank you so much for watching, everyone. That marks the end of today's episode of Politics Tonight. But you can watch the repeat broadcast of this episode at midnight. Get in touch with us on our social media handles, Facebook, Instagram, and X at TVC News NG and at Olajumoke using the hashtag Politics Tonight. We're also on YouTube at youtube.com/TVC News Nigeria. I am Olajumoke Olatunji. Good night, everyone.